He said, pray as you see me pray. Utter these words that you hear me say. Based on the Sunnah worship here, just follow there.
Assalamu alaikum. New class coming to you every Monday and Wednesday, taught by Ustad Layla Nashiba, the fiqh of prayer. Every Monday and Wednesday, 9:30 p.m. Eastern. Inshallah, we'll see you there. Streaming on all major platforms. Channel Sunnahfollowers.
In alhamdulillah, wa salat, wa salam ala wa rasulullah. I'd like to welcome everybody to our class of how to pray from A to Z. How to pray from A to Z. And the thing about this class is, it's most likely probably the second most important class that we have here. Why the second? Because once we declare La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, we immediately began to work on our belief system and also the prayers, our obligations. Prayer is an obligation imposed upon us by Allah. And then we talked about the virtues of praying yesterday in a class, my Prerequisite tafsir class. Who can tell us what are some of the virtues of praying our salats 5 times a day? What are some of the virtues or the rewards of making our prayer 5 times a day? Why did Allah distance the prayers to be 5 times a day at the fixed times that they are? Can anyone answer that?
So we can remember them throughout our days and not do well in this world.
Yeah. I think what she said, so we can, because I heard she must be underground. But what did she say, guys? So we can remember him throughout the day. So we can remember Allah throughout the day and not get too attached to the life of this world, as she said. So that's why Allah has fixed the prayers like they have at their different times. You know, and how long do I have to perform a prayer? How long do I have when the Athan is called for prayer? How long do you have to perform that prayer?
Up to the next prayer, with the exception of Fajr.
Okay, and what signifies the next prayer?
The call of Adhan.
Exactly. So the Athan, you have until the Athan for the next prayer. Does everybody understand that? Except for Fajr. Fajr ends at sunrise. And we talked about that. None of you should be praying when the sun is rising. That's the forbidden time to pray. And that brings me to the next question. When are the other? There are several forbidden times for us to pray. What are the other forbidden times to pray besides sunrise?
I think one of them.
Go ahead, Aya.
I think one of them is right at the end of Asr, because the hypocrites would wait until then to pray their prayers.
Yeah, but that's okay. So what do we call that? Right after Asr, what time of day is that? That's right. But what's the time of day?
Sunset.
That's sunset. Exactly. So that's the sun when the sun sets. The sun sets after Asr. So exactly, the 2 of the forbidden times to pray is sunrise and sunset. And what's the 3rd forbidden time? What's the 3rd forbidden time to pray? We can't pray.
When the sun is at its zenith, the highest.
Exactly. When the sun is at its zenith, which is the highest level of the sky. Those are the 3 forbidden times to pray. And as Miss Jackson said, The reason why, she knew that was going to be my next answer. Good job, Miss Jackson. She said, because during those times, Shaitan, with his arrogance, he stands in front of the sun, so that the people who worship the sun, when they go to bow to the sun, they're bowing to him. Good job. See how arrogant Iblis is? His throne is over the sea. He gets up off his throne with his arrogant, twisted behind, and he stands in front of the sun. Can y'all imagine that? He coming up off his throne that he made, and he gonna stand, kneel. Can y'all imagine that? Kneel.
That is arrogant.
Yeah, thinking of the people worshiping him. That's what the prophet meant in that hadith when he said the sun rises and the sun sets between the horns of Shaitan, because the jinn have horns and they wear dreadlocks. They have horns and locks. That's why it's haram for you Muslim women, African Americans, to be wearing dreadlocks, sister locks, brother locks, daddy locks, mama locks, baby locks, kakabika lock, dada, whatever y'all want to call them. Locks of any kind are haram, because that's what the jinn wear. Iblis has his hair long and nasty knots, and so does all his descendants. Okay? Can y'all see that? They got horns. So he stands there, kneel. So that's why we don't pray when the sun is rising, when the sun is at the zenith, which is the highest part of the sky, or when the sun is setting. Okay? Is there an exception to that? Is there an exception to that? This is a question of fiqh. Think about everything that we learned about the times of the prayers. Is there an exception to praying when the sun is rising or the sun is setting? Is there a situation that makes it an exception?
Except for forgetfulness.
What do you mean by that?
If you're sleeping, you don't really mean to sleep and you miss that prayer time.
Exactly. The exception is if you overslept and missed a prayer, or you forgot. Because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, if you oversleep and you wake up, make that prayer as soon as you wake up. That's an obligatory prayer. The exception is the obligatory prayer. Say, for example, you overslept, you missed Fajr, you wake up, the sun is rising, forget about that. You still make your Fajr. That's an exception. Or you were so busy at work, you work third shift like I used to do. You changing the clients, putting the clients in the toilet and giving them showers. And you had 3 clients you were doing, and you couldn't stop and leave them because they can't stand up. So you have to, wait till after you've done. Then you pray immediately, whether the sun is rising or not. Everybody understand that? Good job. Miss Jackson, if you're going to twist your hair, as long as you can take a comb and comb through it that day. As long as you can take a comb and comb through it. The prophet said, if you got hair, you got to be able to comb through it. If you can't comb through it, no. That's how the jinn walk around. Yeah. So a lot of you African Americans, y'all, and plus we have to remember allegiance. Our allegiance is not to the kafir. The kafir are walking around twisting up their hair. I'm going to be honest, you brothers and sisters shouldn't be doing that. You're taking on the hairstyles of the kafir. That's their pop culture. That's the African American lazy man's pop culture. It's ugly. If you look ugly, you can't do it. Allah hates ugliness. And when people don't comb their hair, they walk around twisting their hair up, knotting their hair up to look like the jinn. We can't do that. So it depends on how you twisting it too. I'm not talking about, sometimes like my granddaughter's got straight hair, like mine. And, I have to twist their hair and then connect it, twist it, connect it. That's different. You can do that, yes. But making these hairstyles like the Kaffir do with rubber bands and twisting and letting this, cause, to make it a dread, they trying to make it a lock because they trifling, don't want to comb the hair. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Y'all know exactly what I'm talking about. African Americans, y'all better get it together. You better find where your allegiance is. Is your allegiance to a Jamaican culture? Is your allegiance to Rastafarian? Or is your allegiance to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the religion of Islam that's against ugliness and that's against triflingness and laziness? Allah loves cleanliness and beauty. He hates ugliness and filth. All right. So that's what we talked about the prayer. Allah put those times that way to keep us in remembrance of him and in submission to him. It'll make us more mindful of him. And the more mindful we are of Allah, the less likely we are to deliberately, intentionally disobey him. And that's the problem. We got so many Muslims smoking weed, drinking, fornicating, adulterating because they're not making their prayers. They're not in a state of remembrance of Allah. They don't remember Allah that much. They have no fear of him anymore. And then we talked about the Athan. We talked about the Iqamet. What are some of the things you cannot do to be an Athan caller? Can anyone remember? What is it that an Athan caller cannot do?
They can't get paid for doing it.
Exactly. You can't expect to get a paycheck because you calling the Athan, you want the mosque to pay you. Moderators, take care of that. Yeah, y'all got to make sure of that. No payment. What else? Can a woman be an Athan caller?
No.
Okay, hold on for a second. Guess I'll do it myself. Oh, she's done it. She did. Okay. Yeah, a woman cannot call the Athan for the masjid. And I'm going to share with you guys an interesting email I got the other day. I got an email from a woman telling me that she is a chaplain. And she happened to hear or see my short. She said, "You're saying that a woman cannot call the Athan." She said, "Then how am I supposed to let the people know that the prayer has come in?" I'm like, "What? Lord." I didn't know what she's talking about. I'm like, "Excuse me." I emailed her back. I said, "What do you mean? How are you supposed to let the people know what time the prayer came in?" She said, "I call the Athan for my masjid, and I have an all-women's mosque." I'm like, "What?" She said that she's the Athan caller, and the mosque is all women. She said, "Men don't hear me because of my mosque is all women." I said, "Well, your mosque is going to burn, baby, burn. Disco fever." I told her, "What do you mean you got an all women's mosque?" I said, "Ain't no such thing in Islam. There ain't no imamas." She said, "I'm a chaplain." I said, "You ain't no imamas." I said, "Ain't no women's masjids. Are you crazy?" So that shows how twisted we are here in America. We got some women who got women's masjids. I don't know where she was. I emailed her and asked her, "Where? Can you tell me what state you in?" She didn't respond. She wasn't that crazy, I guess. But because I was gonna let everybody know, I was gonna warn the world about this all women's masjid that's got a woman imama who calls herself a chaplain, and she calls the Athan to let the people know that the time for prayer is in. Subhanallah. Boy, we are so messed up here. So those are some of the things that we talked about the Athan. How many different ways are there to call the Athan? How many different ways are there to pronounce the Athan?
Three.
Three.
Good job. How many different ways are there to call the Iqamat?
3.
Good job. 3 different ways for that. And what's the difference between the Athan and the Iqamat? Who can tell us that? What is the difference between the Athan and the Iqamat? Yeah, how do they differ? Well, I mean, I don't mean how they are pronounced. What purpose? What's the difference in the purpose they serve?
The Adhan is. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. The Adhan is to let the people know that the time for the prayer has started, and the Iqama is to let the people know that to stop whatever you're doing and it's time to pray right now.
Exactly. The Adhan lets you know that that prayer has come in. It's time for Dhuhr or time for Asr or whatever. The Iqamat means we getting ready to pray right now. Line up. Is there a certain amount of time that the Imam should wait before he leads the people in prayer after the Adhan is pronounced?
He gives doesn't give a particular time, but he gives a good amount of time for everybody to assemble, make wudu, get themselves, time to get to the masjid or whatnot.
Exactly. There's no specific time. Anybody tells you that there is, tell them to bring their dalil. He uses his own common sense, his own judgment. That's why you guys will see that the masjids, your mosque might have dhuhr at 3 o'clock. But the prayer itself is at 3:30. They can allow enough time for the people to get ready for the prayer. So those are the things that we covered the last time we met for this class. And I did put shorts out like you guys wanted. I did put some shorts out. They're on the internet now. They're on my YouTube channel and they're on my Facebook page. Check them out. And today what we're going to do, since we covered the Adhan, we covered the Iqamat, we're going to speak about the prerequisites of the prayer. The prerequisites, that means before we actually make wudu and before we actually pray, there are some things that we need to be aware of. And let me put the PowerPoint up on the screen. Hold on. Whew. Yeah. I'm learning how to work these 2-3 computers. I got 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I got 4 altogether, but I've been working with the 2, 3. The 4th one is just sitting there, and that's good because the 4th one is my laptop for writing, and I don't like to put nothing on that except my writing. It's the smaller, and it's a little bitty. It's an 11-inch. Okay, so here we go. Yeah. Did I put it there? Oh, wait a minute. Let me hit the button right. I'm on the wrong mouse. I always mix up, use the wrong mouse. Here we go. So today we're going to speak about the prerequisites of the prayer. Things that we need to do before we pray. Things that we need to do before we pray. Make sure you guys are watching me on the big screen TV. Make sure that you guys are taking screenshots. Yes, taking screenshots with your cell phone, with your laptop, with your tablet or whatnot. Because I'm going to have a lot of information I'm getting ready to give you today. I'm going to talk about some things that many of you maybe have never heard. And everything I'm telling you is based on authentic hadiths. And I'm going to have the sources of all those hadiths there. So when you tell your husband, he won't come back and try to call me a witch and say that woman is a liar because Layla don't lie, period. I don't lie about anything. And I definitely ain't gonna lie about this dean. So I got the sources. So make sure y'all screenshot, because some of y'all gonna be surprised at what I'm gonna teach y'all today. Because every time I teach it, they shocked. And before I go into some of the stuff, here's the hadith about the Athan comment for women. Since I got that phone call from this woman chaplain, female chaplain, that even the name just sounds gay. Female chaplain. It just sounds gay. But since I got that email from this female chaplain, let me put the hadith here about the Athan comment for women. I want you guys to pay attention to this hadith, and I hope this female chaplain is paying attention. This is narrated by Ibn Umar. May Allah be pleased with him. He said, there is no adhan nor iqamet for women. There's your dalil. What's the source? Al-Bayhaqi. Okay, that's the source. It's authentic. Sahih. Authentic chain. And not only did Ibn Umar say that, Ibn Umar was one of the original companions. He's better than the 4 imams. Okay? Also, Anas said that. He was the nephew of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He's better than the 4 imams. Also, Al-Hasan. Also, Ibn Sirin. Malik. And so on and so on. So here we can see, guys, there's the authentic hadith. Layla doesn't make it up. When I say something, believe you me, I'm going to make you wear egg. So get ready for your shell to come. All right? Now, but what does that mean when we say there is no adhan or there is no iqamet? We talked about it last week. I'm not going to go into detail about it again this week. My short says it all. Okay, that means it's not obligatory. It's not obligatory. I repeat, it's not obligatory for a woman to call the adhan nor the iqamet. And we talked about why. But if she wants to, she can. As long as she doesn't make her voice beautiful or too loud. You don't want nobody to be able to hear you. And where do we get that from? This authentic hadith too. Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her. She used to call the adhan and the iqamet, and she would lead the women in her home in prayer. And she would stand in the middle. That's the source. The same source. Bayhaqi. So there's your authentic dalil on that. So we don't have to call the adhan as a woman. We don't have to call the iqamet as a woman. But if you want to do it, you can. Just make sure that you don't beautify your voice and you don't be too loud, because it's for your protection. You don't want the men around you to know that you are alone, because a man can hurt you. Okay? It's for your protection. And I put this picture here. Y'all see how these women are standing together to pray? That woman for the second from the left, she's the one leading. And that's how Aisha would do. She would stand in the middle. The women were lined up. The women were her servants. She would have her servants. She would lead them in prayer. They stand in a line like that, and she would be in the middle. Okay? So there's that dalil. Now, a lot of people ask, is there a time between the iqamah and the prayer? We talked about how when the adhan is pronounced, the imam should wait a few minutes, wait a while to allow the people to get to the mosque and prepare for the prayer. Well, what about the iqamah? Well, can I talk after the iqamah? This is what Brother Omar asked. Well, yes, you can. You can talk between the iqamah and the prayer. And if you do talk, you don't have to repeat the iqamet. Where's the dalil? Again, it's narrated by Anas. And who is Anas? Anas was the nephew of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said the iqamet was made while the Prophet was talking to a man in the corner of the mosque. He did not come to the prayer until the people had fallen asleep. So this is Sahih Bukhari. So you can see that there's your dalil. I can talk after the iqamet. And I can talk during it if the iqamet is being pronounced and I'm talking to somebody, I can do that. Also another hadith, once the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam remembered that he was in a state of sexual impurity after the iqamah had been pronounced. So he went to take a bath and then he came back to lead the prayer and he did not, I repeat, he did not, I repeat, he did not make a new iqamah. Y'all see that? These hadiths are all authentic. So make sure you're taking screenshots because some people think the iqamet was called, but then I realize I got to use the bathroom. So I go and use the bathroom and then I come back. Do I have to recall the iqamet? No. You can go ahead and say Allahu Akbar and start praying because the whole purpose of the iqamah is just to let the people know we're getting ready to do it right now. Okay? So I got to use a bathroom. I call the iqamah. I have GERD. I got irritable bowel syndrome. I call the iqamah for myself. That happens all the time. As soon as I get through with that iqamah, got to go to the bathroom. Irritable bowel syndrome. Do I have to come back and make another iqamah? No. And there's your evidence, people. All of these hadiths are Bukhari and Muslim. What about this? Can a person who was not appointed as the caller to the prayer, can he make the adhan? He has to first get the permission of whoever is the caller. So say, for example, your community has Brother Abdullah assigned as the caller of the prayer and the iqamah. You want to do the iqamah today. You have to ask Brother Abdullah, can you do that? Okay. So these are some more rules that we have to be aware of when it comes to the iqamah. And also more about the iqamah. You can't sing it. You guys remember that video from 2 years ago? There was some African-American brother in California. I think in San Diego, he was a new shahada and he sang that he was calling the adhan and he had his own little beat to it. He made it sound like some song and stuff. This is haram to sing the adhan or to make it in an inappropriate way or an improper Arabic by adding words to it or letters to it or over elongating the vowels or shortening the vowels. This is haram because it's going to change the meaning. Arabic is a different language than English. If you over elongate, you're going to change the meaning of that word. If you make that word the vowel too short, you can change the meaning. And where's my dalil? Right here. One of the companions said, I saw Ibn Umar tell a man. He said, I am mad at you. I am angry at you for the sake of Allah. The man said, why? He said, because you sing when making your adhan. And you ask people to pay you for it. Oh, yeah. Doesn't that sound familiar? How many of you know brothers who like to travel around and sing the adhan? And they ask you to pay them. They ask for donations. This is haram. Life is a circle. Like I tell you guys, there is nothing that we are encountering today as Muslims that has not already been addressed by the Prophet and his companions. because people are people. And now what I want to do is speak about some more innovations of the Athan. One of the brothers here asked, Sister Layla, are there a lot of innovations at the mosques? Of course there are. Singing the Athan is one innovation. Taking money for it is another innovation. Well, here's another innovation of the Athan. Making dhikr or supplications for the before the Fajr Athan. How many of you see that? The last time I went to a mosque during Fajr was when I was married to Mr. Sheikh. And there was a bunch of women up there at the mosque making dua and dhikr. I'm like, what the heck is going on here? Oh, I come to the mosque, sister, and these were Arab women. I come to the mosque every morning. I come to the mosque every day before Fajr, and I like to dhikr and make dua. I said, sister, this is haram. This is innovation. I said, you ain't better in your faith than any of the prophets' wives. They didn't do that stuff. They told me I was crazy. Okay? This is something that we don't do, guys. This is not from the Sunnah. There is no hadith on this planet that you can find that shows any of the companions of the prophet or the prophet himself would go to the mosque before Fajr and sit there making dua or dhikr until the time. This is innovation. Okay? Also, another innovation you see at the mosque is people sending peace and blessings upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam after the Athan. How many of you have heard people do that? La ilaha illallah. Then people say sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How many of you have heard that? The Athan is called when the muadhin is finished. La ilaha illallah. Then people say sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Not only is this innovation, but it's hated. This is something that the scholars hate, that the people of the Sunnah hate, because this started after the death of the companions. Once the companions had all died out, here comes the innovators. They call the Athan and then La ilaha illallah. And then they goes, sending blessings upon the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Some of them sing it. How many of you have heard people sing sallallahu alaihi wasallam after the Athan? This is innovation. So you want to avoid these innovations with the Athan. No singing it, no dhikr and dua before it for Fajr, and no sending peace and blessings upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam after it either. These are all hated innovations. So now, let's get into the prerequisites of the prayer. God, I wrote this so small. I can't even read it, guys. I'm sorry. I got my contacts on. Let me look on this other computer because this is such small print for me. Wait, let me move my Zoom out the way. Boy, if I could take this Zoom out of the way, then I could use just this screen to see, but I can't move it. Okay. This is a question that somebody asked me the other day, so I threw it in here. If you know that the prayer has begun, can I go ahead and pray it? Yes. If a person is certain that the time for prayer has begun, he can go ahead and pray it. How he reached that decision is not important. So say, for example, I know that it's time for Fajr, or I know that it's time for Maghrib. Can I just go ahead and pray it? Yes. I don't have to figure out how I reached that decision. And also, before you pray, you have to be make sure that certain major impurities are not around. I want you guys to pay attention to this verse of the Quran. And I know it's kind of, the print is kind of small. Let me see if I can do something about that. Hold on. Yeah, because even I think it might be, oh, okay, I can make it just a little bit bigger. Okay, got a little bit bigger. Okay, there you go. Allah says in the Quran, in the interpretation, the meaning, oh, you who believe, when you rise for the prayer, wash your faces, your hands up to the elbows, and lightly rub your hands and wash your feet up to the ankles. If you are unclean, purify yourselves. And Ibn Umar, may Allah be pleased with him, tells us that the Prophet said, Allah does not accept any prayer that was not performed while in a state of purity, nor does he accept charity from anything that was stolen or unlawful sources. So here you can see, guys, before you make salat, and when I meet with you guys next week, we're going to go over wudu. But before you make salat, you have to make sure that you are in a state of purity. Otherwise, that prayer is not going to be accepted. And not only must your body be in a state of purity, but your clothing too. Let me see if I can make this bigger. Your clothing too. Okay? If you cannot remove physical impurities, then you can pray in that garment and you don't have to repeat it. What does that mean? Say, for example, there's some impurity, like some urine or something on your garment. If you see it, go ahead and wash it off or wipe it off or whatever. But if you didn't know, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. And you do not have to repeat the prayer later. Where's my dalil? Anas tells us that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, stay clean of urine, as the majority of the punishments in the grave are due to it. So if you know that you got urine or something on your clothing, try to clean it off. But if you didn't know, or if you can't get it all off, then it's okay. Does everybody understand? And there's the source. Also, here's another hadith from Ali. May Allah be pleased with him. He said, I used to suffer with prosthetic fluid. In other words, that stuff that comes out of your private parts. So he asked someone to ask the Prophet about it. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, simply make wudu and wash your penis. So that's the same for you sisters too. You know, if you have that discharge, we all have a discharge that comes out from our private part. You know, do I have to take a ghusl before I pray? No, just simply wash your private part and make a wudu. Wash your private part and make a wudu. And we're going to go into more detail about that when I cover the wudu next week. And also, here's more dalil. Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, tells us that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told the women who suffer with istihada, and that's not most of you. You women don't know what istihada is. We're going to talk about istihada. But if a woman really has istihada, then all she has to do is wash the blood from her and pray. Istihada is a woman who has a sickness. She's bleeding for over 30 days nonstop. Istihada is nonstop bleeding. You've been bleeding for over 30 days. That's a sign that you got something wrong with you. It can be cervical cancer. It could be some other fibroid. But even then, and we're going to talk about it, you have to look at the color that's coming out of you. Because if it's too filthy, we don't pray. And we'll talk about that in another class. Okay? So we have to free ourselves, our body and our clothing and the place that we're praying. Make sure it's clean and free of urine. Okay? Free of urine. One of my co-workers worked in a different cottage from me. The cottage that person worked in had some nasty people in it that kept the bathroom nasty. And I remember when he would go into pray in the bathroom, he says, Layla, I'd have to mop the floor first. But that's how men are. Men are nasty. Some of them Kaffir men. They stand up and urinate everywhere. Whereas where I worked, my bathrooms were clean. The women where I worked with were like me, clean and OCD. We didn't have that issue. But I remember my other Muslim co-workers, he'd have to mop that floor and because he'd go into the lounge area and pray, but he'd have to mop it down. All right, so make sure that the place, your clothing and stuff is as clean as you can get it. And also about the clothing. Allah tells us in the interpretation of the meaning, purify your raiment, your adornment. And we have a hadith, whereas one of the companions said, he heard a man ask the prophet, can I pray in the same clothes that I had on when I had sexual relations with my wife? The prophet said, yes, you can. But if you see some stains on it, then wash the stains out. And there's the dalil. So yes, I can pray in the shift. A lot of women ask me, Sister Layla, can I pray in the nightgown that I had relations with my husband in? Yes, you can. But if you see any stains on your nightgown, just try to scrub them off or scrape them off. Wash them off with a wet towel or scrape them off with your finger. Okay? Also, Muawiyah, may Allah be pleased with him, he tells us that he asked Habiba. Habiba was his auntie. His sister. He said, did the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam pray in the same clothes that he wore when he had intercourse? She said yes, if there were no stains on it. So there's more dalil. And also more evidence. Abu Sa'id, he tells us that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam took off his shoes one day, and the people took off their shoes too. And when he finished the prayer, he asked the people, why did y'all take off your shoes? Which is the proof that you can pray with your shoes on. They said, we took off our shoes because you took off yours. He said, well, the only reason I took my shoes off was because the angel Jibril had come to me and told me that I had some feces on the bottom of them. Other than that, I would have kept my shoes on. All right. So there's more evidence. There's more evidence that, check to make sure that there's no feces on your shoes. If there is feces or something on it, wipe them off. And in regards to the place that you're praying at, the Abu Huraira, may Allah be pleased with him, tells us that a Bedouin stood and urinated in the mosque. The people went to attack him, but the Prophet said, leave him be. Instead, take a bucket of water and pour it over the urine. So here you can see, if it's urine on the floor, just pour water over it, like my coworker do. He would just mop the floor. He would just mop the floor, and then he'd go ahead and pray. Okay? Mop the floor and just go ahead and pray. Or take a water squirter. A squirter, if you got a bathroom that has that's all porcelain or marble, and they got those water squirters in it, just squirt the whole floor down with the water and then go ahead and pray. Okay? Islam is easy. And now what I'm going to do is talk about the aura. When we use this Arabic word aura, we're referring to the naked part of the body that should be covered, the parts of the body that should be covered. Allah says in the Quran, O children of Adam, take your adornment, wear your beautiful clothing to every mosque, okay? Adornment refers to the covering of the aura, and the mosque is the place of prayer. So cover your body for every prayer. And this is what I want you brothers to take a screenshot of this hadith. Remember, some of the young brothers today like to pray without a shirt on. Some of the brothers like to pray with their stomach out or their chest out. I want you brothers to pay attention to this hadith. Salama ibn al-Aku, he went to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he said, "O Prophet of Allah, can I pray in a long shirt?" This is a shirt that men wear. He said, "Yes, but button it up, even if you use a thorn." So for you brothers praying with your chest out, and we got a lot of Muslim men that do that now. You want to stand there with your chest showing. Have some respect. What's the source of this hadith? This hadith is Sahih al-Bukhari. You can't get no more authentic than this, than the Holy Quran. The Prophet told this man, yes, you can pray in a long shirt as long as you button it up. Button it up, even if you have to use a thorn from a rose. Button, stick that thorn in there to button that shirt up. So you brothers, your chest should be covered. Do you brothers understand that? Your stomach and your chest should be covered when you pray. Make sure you brothers take a screenshot. What about the thighs? This is another question. Can a man pray with his thighs out? Well, now we get to these hadiths. Pay attention. Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her. She said the Prophet was sitting with his thigh exposed. And Abu Bakr, her father, came and asked permission to see him. And the Prophet saw him. And then Umar, may Allah be pleased with him, came to visit too. And the Prophet allowed him in. His thigh was exposed. But when Uthman came to visit him, the Prophet covered his thigh. And when they left, she said, "O Prophet of Allah, you allowed my father and Umar to see you with your thigh exposed. But when Uthman came, you covered it up." The Prophet said, "Oh, Aisha, shouldn't I have haya or shyness of a man who even the angels are shy of?" Because Uthman was a shy little young lad. Uthman was younger than them and shy. So out of modesty and humbleness, the Prophet covered his thigh so that Uthman wouldn't be embarrassed to see the Prophet's thigh. Let me give y'all another example. Let's say that I'm sitting here and Latifa comes to visit me. I'm sitting on in my seat on the computer, and I got my leg, because I had total knee replacement surgery. I got my leg resting on a chair, and I got my abaya pulled up so you can see my whole leg, including my thigh. And then Amina Fresno comes to visit, and I still keep my leg sitting on the chair with my thigh out. But let's say that Norto comes. Norto comes to visit. I'm going to move my abaya down to under my knee. I'm not going to let Norto see my thigh. Why? Because it might be embarrassing for her. She's a young girl, and she might be embarrassed to see her teacher's thigh. Y'all understand this hadith now? People in Zoom, y'all understand this hadith now? Is it? So it's not saying that the prophet covered it up because he had to. He covered it up for Uthman so as not to embarrass Uthman to see his thigh. And also we have this next authentic hadith. Anas tells us during the battle of Khaybar, the prophet's gown was withdrawn from his thigh, and I could see the whiteness of it. And the source of all these hadiths is Sahih Bukhari. So as you can see, the prophet didn't cover up his thigh like that. So we can't say that it's haram for a man to have his thigh exposed. Because if it were, the prophet would not have had his exposed. We have another hadith whereas, we know that we don't walk around naked around another man or around each other. But as Imam Muslim says, if had it been haram for a man to show his thigh, the prophet wouldn't have shown his at all. And plus we have another hadith that the prophet was sitting with another companion and the prophet tapped that companion on his thigh. If it was haram for the man to show his thigh, then why would the prophet have touched it? So these are all the dalil, the authentic hadiths that we use to answer that question about does the man's thigh have to be covered? Okay? So take a screenshot of all these hadiths, and I got all the sources there for anyone who wants to try to refute you brothers on that. Okay, I mixed up my mouses. Wait a minute, which one? That's this one. Now, here we go. What about the woman? Well, we all know that everything's different when it comes to women's issues. It's a little bit different for us. Okay? The woman's aura. There is no doubt from anyone that the woman's aura is her entire body except for her face and hands. And that's based on the verse of the Quran where Allah says in the interpretation, the meaning, to display their adornment, only that which is apparent. And apparent means, as Ibn Abbas, as Aisha, radiallahu anha, and as Ibn Umar said, when Allah says only that which is apparent, that refers to her hands and face. The woman's hands and face does not have to be covered, but her feet, the top of her feet, her neck, her ears, her arms, all of that does. Also, Ibn Abbas, Ibn Umar, and Aisha, may Allah be pleased with them all, said that the Prophet said, Allah does not accept the prayer of a woman unless she is wearing a kimar, a head covering. I want you sisters to pay attention to that. And you guys see how I am not teaching you what the four imams said. I don't care what the four imams had to say about the prayer. I'm telling you what Ibn Abbas, Ibn Umar, Aisha, Sa'id al-Khudri, Ali, what they had to say, because they out-trumped the four imams, because the four imams were not companions of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. These were, and they were the best. Allah says they are the best of this nation to come. Hello. So you women have to cover your body, including your head. But your face and hands do not have to be covered. And also, let me see if I can move this. Solomon, I keep telling y'all, she was a scholar of this deen too. She was a scholar of fiqh too. She said that she asked the prophet, can a woman pray in a long shirt? A long night shirt, your nightgown. Can I pray in my long night shirt and a head covering? Or do I have to go put on some pants? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, if the shirt is long and covers the top of your foot, this is the dalil, that your feet have to be covered, sisters, the top of your feet. Even when you pray, the top of your feet have to be covered. Okay? There's a dalil. Take a screenshot, sisters. Also, Aisha, y'all see I ain't using no 4 imams. I don't care what the 4 imams got to say. I'm giving it straight to y'all from the real people of knowledge. Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, said, well, she was asked by the Roman women, how many garments does a woman have to wear to pray? She said, I want you to go ask Ali because I want to see what answer he gives you. And I'll tell you if his answer was right. So they went and asked Ali. And Ali said a woman has to pray in a head cover and a long flowing shirt. That's all. All she needs is 2 things. Something to cover her hair and a long flowing dress. And Aisha said, he's told you the truth. And again, the difference, Allah is not as hard on a woman in regards to prayer clothing as he is outside the house. So, can my shirt be tight fitting? Yes. It doesn't have to be loose. Can they be straight pants? Can I wear straight leg pants? Yes, if that's all I got. If all you got are straight leg pants and a little bitty shirt that covers you, but it shows your body, and you got a hijab, yes, you can still pray in that. So it doesn't matter if it's tight fitting as long as your body parts are covered. Do you sisters understand? So that's what I wanted to go over today. I know that was a lot of information, but that's the basics. I've got more for you next week. Next week, I'm going to give you a quiz to cover what we discussed today. And then I'm going to speak about more prerequisites of the prayer. And I'm going to go into the wudu and stuff. So are there any questions? Inshallah, you guys can go ahead and ask them. Go ahead, sisters, with any questions.
I have a question about the times of prayer that you mentioned in the beginning of class.
Yes.
You said that the forbidden times were sunrise, sunset, and when the sun is at its zenith, but I thought that sunset was Maghrib. So I just need a little clarification on it.
Okay, when the sun is setting. When the sun is setting. Remember I showed you guys Maghrib, but right before it, that's when Iblis will stand up in front. That's what's meant, that last part of Asr. It says the last part of Asr right before. And I showed y'all the picture. That red. Maghrib is when the whole sky is turned red. Y'all remember that picture? The forbidden time is when the red is at the bottom and it's still yellow, a little bit of yellow at the top. Y'all understand the difference now? That's still sunset, but that's not Maghrib. Maghrib, the Athan for Maghrib is called when the whole sky is red. When the whole sky is red, that's Maghrib. But when it's just the red at the bottom and the yellow still at the top, that's the last part of Asr. That's the forbidden time to pray. You remember that when I showed you all the pictures? Everybody understand?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank
Yeah,
you.
we can't pray at that. That's why the prophet hadith is not Asr. The hadith says that last part of Asr right before Maghrib. And the prophet differentiated it. It's when you still see yellow. Remember, Maghrib begins when there's no yellow. It's all red. Y'all got it? All red. That's when the Adhan is called for Maghrib. But that yellow that's still there, that's the forbidden time. And that's a good question. But since you guys have the Adhan, like I said, I'm trying to teach you guys how to pray, because when that war comes, ain't going to be no Adhan callers. But you guys got it easy. You know, just follow whatever your mosque puts as their time. Because now whoever's calling the Adhan of your mosque, they have to know the correct times. Okay? But you just pray whenever, based on whatever time there. But the forbidden time is sunset, when the sun is setting. Maghrib is sunset. What is Maghrib? That's an Arabic word. What does Maghrib mean in English? Maghrib means sunset. The forbidden time is when the sun is setting, when the sun is beginning to recline. Okay? And when the sun is beginning to recline is when there's red at the bottom and yellow at the top. Sunset is complete red. Y'all see that? I know it's confusing because we don't look at the sky anymore, except those of us who have been trained to do it, like Shamsa. I'm glad Shamsa, she can tell you the time of the day, the night, and she can do like me. She can tell you when it's 2:30, 2:15, but she grew up in the desert. Her father taught her that. Yeah. All right. So, yeah, but that's it. But that's we don't pray when the sun is setting. That's the forbidden time. When that yellow and that red starts to appear, when that red comes out, that's when Shaitan, with his arrogant behind, gets up off his throne and stands there. He stops standing once the sky turns completely red. When it's completely red, he gets back on his throne. He's an arrogant behind. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes, Brother Tashri, that's the supplication. That's the supplication that you recite after the Adhan, asking the Allah to give the Prophet Muhammad that special place in paradise. That's recited after you hear the Adhan. And also after hearing the Adhan, you should recite that. And what else should you do, guys? Make your own personal supplication too. Remember that hadith? There's a lot of Allah will answer the supplication of the person that's been from between the Adhan and the Iqamah. Okay, go ahead.
I was wondering, should we pray as a congregation with a group of, because I have two girls and myself, should we pray all together? Is there more blessings playing together? Or
a woman gets more blessings playing by herself, but for you it's different because you a mama and you're supposed to teach your children to pray. So that's how you teach them, the same way Aisha taught the females of her house. She would make the servants pray with her. So yeah, you should pray with your kids. But for us women, the less, the more we get, because Allah, you know, a woman gets more blessings praying by herself. Like I told you guys, we're going to talk about this in detail. All the hadiths that talk about congregation refer to men, not women. A woman gets more blessings, as the prophet said, praying by herself in her bedroom where no one can see her or hear her. than she would praying at the mosque with him. But you women are mothers. It's your job to teach your children to pray. So you have your daughters praying with you. Yes. And you're getting blessings for teaching your daughters to pray. And you're getting blessings for obeying Allah. So it still works out. You're getting just as much rewards as the brothers do because you're teaching your kids and you're obeying Allah by teaching them. So yeah. Okay, everybody understand that? But like a person like me, I'm getting more blessings than everybody by myself in my bedroom. Yeah. A woman.
one more thing,
Yeah,
Sister Layla. So my 8-year-old has learned how to recite and pray. Now she wants to lead. She knows more Quran than me.
Yeah.
So sometimes I let her lead and sometimes I said no.
No, you can't.
Okay.
Yeah. It ain't about how much Quran. It's just all they have to know is the Fatiha. And that's part of teaching her. That's part of teaching. The only Quran you got to know is El Fatiha. If the child know, even if the child is 6 years old, if the child knows the Fatiha and the child knows how to perform the prayer correctly, then yeah, you can let them lead. That's part of teaching. Yeah, let her lead sometimes and you lead sometimes. But the house, we're going to talk about this hadith too. The house is yours, not hers. Okay? And that's another hadith. You don't let a person lead you in prayer in your house unless you give them permission. And we're going to talk about that. You can't have another person come to your home and sit in your seat or lead you in prayer. That's your house. Unless you allow them to give them permission to. But yes, in this case, yes, let her do it like you're doing. Sometimes you lead, sometimes they lead. So that way they're learning. But the house is still yours. That's your domain. It ain't theirs. I mean, they live there, but that's your place. You the boss. Yeah. And then when your husband comes home, he the boss. Yeah. Check and balance in Islam. We got a hierarchy. The kids are not our governors. They're not our masters. They're not our rulers, our leaders. And that's one of the signs of last hour. We'll have our children being our rulers and leaders over us. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah. Yeah, the hadiths, the brother here's typed, the hadiths are so clear. Yes, they are. It's just that we have to learn them. I don't understand why people learn how to pray from books written by men. I don't care about that. And I'm taking all this stuff directly from the hadiths. Y'all see that I'm not using no book written by Sheikh nobody. I don't need Sheikh so-and-so's book on how to pray. I'm taking it directly from out of Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. And other books too. The hadiths from the companions and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. All right, tomorrow we have, tomorrow's Thursday. So tomorrow we have Dr. McBride's class at 6 p.m. Yeah, we have Dr. McBride's class at 6 p.m. And then we have, what else is Wednesday, y'all?
Sheikh Saud.
We also have Sheikh Saud. Let me write that down too so I can make sure I got him on the schedule. We have Sheikh Saud at 8 p.m. And then you have my class on the Prerequisite, the Prerequisite tafsir. Yeah, so I'll try to put that stuff out tonight. So Dr. McBride at 6, Sheikh Saud at 8, and then me at 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. Okay, guys, inshallah, I'm going to close out for tonight. Make sure that everybody is back here tomorrow at 6. And also I'll be posting up the pages from the Prerequisite tafsir for you guys to read too. All right, so subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Everybody have a good night.